Thanks, Dirk. Appreciate it. Got to get all my tools out here, fellas. First thing I'll tell you is that good recruiting beats good coaching any day. And, it was neat to hear all those things that Dirk said. And I can promise you that the reason that kind of stuff happens is because of the people that you're around and the people that, that you're able to coach. David Prices don't grow on trees, and I certainly, had a very small part in things like that. But the point of it is, I'm very honored to be here. It's going to take me a couple minutes to kind of get my bearings. It always does when I start off with these kind of things. Once we get into the topic, it'll be a lot better. But I am very honored and very privileged to be here. I'm looking forward to the opportunity to interact with you guys during the weekend, to be able to share some things with you, and hopefully you'll be able to share some things with me. And I'm also looking forward to some of the other speakers. They got a great lineup, some guys that I know, some guys that I'm excited about learning from as well. And so I just look at it like it's a great opportunity to learn. And, to me, there are two types of players, two types of coaches. It's a player or a coach that is humble, and there's the type of player or coach that's about ready to be humbled. And so I guess what I mean by that, fellas, is I'm here to learn. I'm here grinding just like you guys are, and certainly don't feel like I have anything figured out beyond anyone else. A couple days ago, got an email from Dirk, and it was the itinerary. It was kind of going over the planes and restaurants or food situation and hotels and all that, and of course the schedule. And turns out I'm kicking this thing off. And I guess the only thing I can really say about that is appreciate it, Dirk. Thanks. That's great. But no, I'm going to tee this thing up, and we're going to have some fun doing it. We're going to talk about some things that I think can become important. And one of the things on our way here, Travis Jewett and I, we were in the plane together and rode here together. And one of the things that I probably didn't necessarily account for is the differences in age groups that you guys coach. So you'll have to kind of forgive me in advance. Some of this stuff might not apply to a 7 or 8 year old kid, but I think there might be some root things that you can take away and and be able to deal with. As Dirk mentioned too, I was at Vanderbilt, fortunate enough to be at Vanderbilt for 11 years. In 2011, we went to our first College World Series ever. And it was just a great time. I mean, we played well. We didn't play well enough to win the whole thing. And, but we represented our school. We represented ourselves well, and it was a great time for us. And Coach Corbin and I were heading on the plane to go back to Nashville after we were done. And he said, what are your thoughts? What do you think about what's happening to this thing here at Vanderbilt? And, I thought for a little while, and I said, Coach, I think there's one piece, just one piece that's missing, and we're going to win it all. Little did I know that I was the piece that needed to be missing for that to happen. But I couldn't have been more proud of those guys. I recruited a lot of them, obviously, kept in touch with all the coaching staff, and was just really, really proud to be a small part of that. So today we're going to talk about the arsenal. And there's a lot of things that go into the arsenal besides just pitches or grips. We're going to talk about that for sure. I'm going to kind of split it up into three things. We're going to talk about kind of traits of the pitcher, what makes a pitcher. We'll talk about the grips and the different pitches, as I said, and then we'll talk about planning that kind of goes in the development of an arsenal. So we'll kind of get this thing going. But as I said, arsenal. It's more than just grips and pitches. To me, it's kind of a lifestyle. It's a way that the pitcher, it's the way he trains, it's the way he is. It's what he does. It's how he approaches the game. And I think maybe the easiest way to say it, and we're always looking to simplify things, is how do I get guys out? How do I get guys out consistently? And I think that's a really important thing that sometimes gets lost. As coaches, as pitchers, we want to throw harder. We want to have a great breaking ball, and we forget about the idea of what this game is all about, and that's getting as many hitters out as we possibly can, as often and consistently as we can. All right? I think an arsenal is a plan for the hitter that we're going to be facing, or the hitters we're going to be facing. I think it's a plan to help the catcher call a game. And I was a proponent of this when I was in college. I still am. I think coaches do a disservice to catchers by calling games. Have I done it before? Yes. Do I think that it can be done with a catcher and a pitcher? Absolutely. And there's some things I think that we'll talk about later that might lend itself to you not calling the game. But the bottom line on that is that you have to teach them first. It's understanding what a hitter does, how he reacts, some of the things that a pitcher or a catcher can see kind of in the heat of the moment that might lend a clue to what he's going to do next. It's an understanding of game situations. It's developing pitching skill, and it's also developing the outside components of pitching, PFPs, pickoffs. All of those things, to me, kind of lend itself to developing an arsenal. So that's kind of where we're going to go with this today. All right, I think the easiest place to start, and something that you have to remind your pitchers of over and over and over again, is the idea that we have the advantage. Statistically, pitchers have the advantage in every single situation of the game. You can go balls in play, you can go batting average against, you can go straight up batting average, but the bottom line is we are the one that dictates what happens. The ball starts in our hand, and the hitters have to react to what we throw. And that is an advantage in and of itself. It's something I think pitchers forget. Pitching's hard, hitting's harder. And that's something I think that kind of gets lost in all the stuff that we try to do with pitchers, and we end up complicating things for them when, in essence, if we do a good job of throwing the ball across the plate, and we do a good job with some other things, with movement, command, and shape of pitch, and sequence, and things like that, the advantages go up higher and higher for the pitcher all the time. So that's what it's about. Hitting's about timing. Pitching is about disrupting that timing, and you guys have heard that saying before. For me, I want to make the hitter responsible for as many areas of the zone as I possibly can. So in the way that I practice pitching, the way that I approach the game, the way that I approach pitching, and I'm talking about as a player, is that I want the hitter, I want to be able to manipulate his barrel. I want it to be down, I want it to be up, I want it to be out, I want it to be in, I want it to change shapes. And obviously this all goes on his skill level, but I want the hitter to be responsible for more zones than just one. And a lot of times we're kind of guilty of this, is throw the ball down. Throw the ball down. And you have a great shot when you throw the ball down. But where's our game going, and where has it gone for the last few years? It's gone away. Pitchers sit away. We try to get down and away because it is a tough pitch for the hitter to handle. But at the same time, I think guys like Travis Jewett, Jeff Albert, those guys are teaching hitters how to get to that pitch better and better and better. So I think as a pitcher, we've got to be able to make them more responsible for areas of the zone. We want to make them responsible for shape and speed differences, and that's pitching. That's what you grew up. That's how I grew up, of knowing, hey, this guy knows how to pitch, right? You talk about that guy, he doesn't throw really hard or whatever, but you say he knows how to pitch. And you say that he knows how to pitch because he can manipulate the ball on both sides of the plate, he can make the hitter responsible for different areas of the plate, and he's able to change speeds, he's able to change shapes, he's able to do something that throws off the timing of the hitter. Okay, so our starting points. What does a good pitcher do? All right, or what traits do good pitchers have? And the first thing, and I think it's part of your arsenal, because I think it's worth a swing or two, it's worth an out or two every game, is that pitcher who goes to the mound every single time out, every hitter, every inning, every game, and battles. He's a warrior. You know, he doesn't get caught up in a bad mound. He doesn't get caught up in a bad umpire. He doesn't get caught up in my stuff's not working quite right today, so it's just not my day. That guy begs, borrows, and steals. He does whatever he can, however he can, in order to just stay in the game. And you know, I've seen this. I've seen it in pro ball. I've seen it in college, where you know the guy's in the fifth inning. He's kind of looking over his coach, going, "Hey, man, I'm not very good today. You know, you might want to come get me." And to me, that's a slap in the face on a warrior pitcher. If you're a warrior pitcher, if you're that guy who wants to figure it out, then you know what? I'm going to change sides of the mound. I'm going to change arm slots if I have to. I'm going to throw different pitches than what I have to in order to stay in this game. I'm going to do whatever I can to win. And that's what competition and competing really is all about. It's about that kind of thought process that if you're up at the plate and I'm on the mound, I feel like I'm better than you, and I have to. The best ones do that. The best ones do that more often, and you know, they do it all the time. David Price texts me before every single game he pitches, and he gives me 3 letters, FAH. And that's something that we developed in college. It's between the Vanderbilt pitching staff and myself, but I'll give you the last 2 letters. It's all hitters. So you fill in the blank on the F. Okay? Every game, FAH. Every game I text him back, FAH, go get him Tiger. And I believe he's as good as he is. Obviously, he's left-handed, he's big, he's strong, he throws hard, he's got all this stuff. But I believe he's as good as he is because of that as much as anything, maybe more. Because I think that when you kind of push comes to shove, it's like something is going to be taken away from me. So you kind of go to that next part is, what's your why? Why do you pitch? Why do you play? Well, why do I pitch? Because I want to prove that I'm better than the guy standing at the plate. I want to prove that I'm better than the team that I'm facing. And that's important to me. That's what competing is all about. So a warrior spirit, a warrior mentality, FAH, me versus you, whatever you want to call it, that to me is the number one part of an arsenal. Okay? Intention or purpose. And for me, when I'm pitching, it's nothing more than the mitt. Right? If I can get locked into the mitt, if I can really get into the mitt where nothing else really matters, then I got a chance to be pretty good that day. Right? It's all the other distractions. Again, it's the bad umpire, it's the kicked ball at shortstop. My team never scores any runs for me. Woe is me, whatever. I don't care. All I know is that when I throw the ball to the mitt and I do that consistently, then good things have a tendency to happen. Okay? So my intention and my purpose inside of a game, when I practice, during my throwing program, is the mitt. I got to be locked in on that. And if I'm locked in on that, then I got a chance to hit it maybe more often. All right? We already talked about me versus you. Trust. Okay? A good pitcher trusts himself. He knows that he prepares, and he knows that his preparation is good enough. He's confident. And that's really, to me, what confidence is. Confidence is nothing more than knowing that my best is good enough. You know why? Because I prepared and I trust my preparation. Right? And I think that again, is kind of another starting point. It takes balls to throw strikes. Right? And if you stood out there and you're not feeling it that day, you know that sometimes I'd rather get hit than walk guys. But it takes balls to throw strikes. So I'm going to go out there. I'm going to be competitive. I'm getting after it. And to me, this last thing, compete for 27 outs, think about that. Any way that I can. If it's a PFP play, if it's a pickoff, if I hold a runner just a little bit better than what I have in the past, and he gets a bad jump and we throw him out, or maybe better yet, he gets a bad jump and he doesn't run. The next pitch is a ground ball, I get 2 outs for 1. That's competing for 27 outs. Okay, so we're going to start getting into the pitches now. And the first thing I'll tell you, and the first thing that I ask every player is, do you own it or do you rent it? Right? You got guys all the time. What do you throw? Well, I throw a fastball, 2-seam and a 4-seam, a cutter, a sinker. I throw a changeup, I throw a fork, and I throw a slider. 6 pitches. You know, what do you throw? I throw a fastball, a curveball, a slider, a changeup, and a split. 5 pitches. All right? So the question is, how many of those do you own? Because for me, if I can't count on a pitch and I can't throw it any time that I want to, I'm renting it. All right? The fastball is going to be that first pitch that I'm going to try to own. Might be a changeup, it might be a breaking ball, whatever. It is going to be that second one, but I'm going to work to own at least one, then two, then three. And that's my basic part of it. Okay? One quality pitch. When I say quality, what's quality? It's a pitch I can throw where I want to. Control is I'm able to hit big areas, big spots of an area. Right? Control is I'm able to get the ball in a big area. Command is I'm able to get the ball in a small area. All right? So if I can throw one quality pitch with some sort of command, then I got a chance to win. How do you win? Well, watch BP. What's your BP thrower throw every single day? 50-foot, this high type of fastball, straight as an arrow. And if you watch BP, better yet, have your pitchers watch BP and see how many times they mishit the ball. See how many times it wasn't struck the right way. It's a ground ball to short, it's a lazy fly ball to left, or whatever. So with one pitch, and they know it's coming, I can still get guys out. That's the kind of advantage that I have as a pitcher. Now, if I can do some other things with it, if I can two-seam it or I can four-seam it, I can get it to different areas of the zone. I might be able to make it move or sink it. I might be able to cut it. I might be able to take a little bit off of my fastball, a BP fastball. Right? I might be able to figure out a way to put extra on it, or seems like I put extra on it. But that's one pitch that I just turned into 4 or 5, maybe 6, and it was one pitch. Right? And there's some mastery to that, but that's something that I think you look at and you strive for. You're not as naked as you think with just that one pitch. You just got to teach them how to use it. Okay? Number 2, I have 2 quality pitches. You can win often. I've seen guys at just about every level of baseball now, whether it be the big leagues or down through college and high school, that do a really good job of winning with 2 pitches. They might show a third and a fourth. They might kind of rent that third and fourth pitch, but they own big time. They own that number 1 and that number 2, whatever that number 2 is. And they own it so much that they can put it on both sides of the plate, cut it, sink it, BP it, whatever. And on the breaking ball, they can throw it for a ball. They can throw it for a strike. They can throw it back door. They can throw it front door. They can throw it with their eyes closed. They can shoot it out of their rear end, and it's still going to go where they want it to go. So those are all things that you do. The 3 guy, the guy who has 3 quality pitches can dominate. 4th, obviously, same kind of thing. But it goes back to what you own, what you rent, and what you're masterful at being able to do. Okay? Okay, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time on the slide, but I'm going to actually have a talk on Sunday. It's called Small Things Change Everything. And I believe that. I think details about the game, details about the pitcher, understanding where this guy comes from, understanding his history. And I know that if he's 8 years old, you know that he lives down the block from you, and you know his mom and dad, and that's great. But if he's older, it's finding out why he does the things that he does. This particularly, to me, was really important coming into professional baseball, because I had seen so many times on the college side where my guys would come back and they'd say, well, they took this away from me, they took that away from me, they won't let me do this. I want to know what's really good about the pitcher. We'll work on the weaknesses in time. But for me, I want to concentrate on what's good. And the reason I want to concentrate on what's good is that if you kind of weigh the good and the bad, especially from a professional setting, the good was good enough for him to get there, right? So I'm going to start with that, and I want to make sure that we keep that. And I think you can think the same way in high school. I think you can certainly think the same way in college, but I want to make sure that I keep the best parts of this guy, whatever they may be. All right? Now, what I'm going to have to do from there is then figure out certain things that might help him be more effective. I'm a low slot guy, and I throw a slider and a curveball. And in my experience, I'm not saying it can't be done, but in my experience, the lower slot guy trying to throw both have a really hard time with that, because there's something about the hand being farther away from the head and they kind of lose track of where their hand is, and there's a little bit of a blend with that pitch, right? So you know that this guy is probably going to come around the slider because he has to, and in order for him to get up on the curveball, he's kind of got to tilt. So good hitters kind of see that early, and it might not be the best thing. Whereas a guy with a higher slot, I know that his hand, he can feel it more because he's more on top of the ball. He's able to maybe throw a curveball and a slider. But the point of it is just really knowing your guys well and then trying to figure out certain things to do with them that'll help them be better. Putting them on one side of the plate of the mound versus the other. And a rule of thumb for me, it's simple. If he's across his body, then I'm probably going to put him on the wrong side. So I'm a right-handed pitcher, and I'm across my body. I'm probably going to put him on the first base side. If he's open, he strides open a little bit, or he strides even, then I'll probably put him on the more traditional side. But what's going to tell me what I need to do, and what is A, the kid, and B, where the ball goes. Ball never lies. If he can get the ball to a certain spot and he's on one side of the mound or the other, you know what? For right now, I'm not gonna worry about that. But small things change everything, and the more detail that you see, the more attention that you pay, the more observant you become with your guy, the better that you know him or his history, the better that you might be able to make those small changes that make a huge difference in the things that he does. Okay. So now we're going to get into some grips and some spacing stuff. I think the first thing that I want to make sure that our guys have an understanding of is that the ball doesn't have to be round if we don't want it to be. All right? What I mean by that is that I want them to think of the ball as a cube. I want it to have sides, right? I want there to be a top. I want there to be a bottom. I want there to be sides, and I want there to be corners. And if I know that if I can get it for them to think that way, then we can kind of use that as leverage with our fingers and where we're going to put the ball. And it's, especially when we get into the breaking stuff, then we can use that to our advantage in terms of kind of leveraging ourselves over the ball, okay? So the ball has sides and corners. Being able to make a ball move is dependent on what side you're on or the other. If I'm going to sink it, then I probably need to be on the inside part of the ball. If I'm going to cut it, I might have to be a little bit more on the outside part of the ball. And I'll get to that in just a second. But the bottom line is we want corners and we want sides, okay? If I've said this once, and I know you guys have too, I need you to stay behind the ball. Right? How many times have you told your pitcher, you got to stay behind the ball? Stay behind the ball. Stay behind the ball. And probably fundamentally, theoretically, whatever, he probably sort of gets that, and you probably sort of do too. But what do we mean when we say stay behind the ball, right? For me, it's pretty simple. My middle finger is sort of, well, it's the longest finger, but B, if it can stay somewhere in the middle of the ball, right? And we don't have a lot of surface area for that to happen. But if my middle finger and my thumb can stay in the middle of the ball, that's going to give me the best chance to do what my coach has asked me to do, and that's to stay behind the ball. And that's on a changeup, that's on a breaking ball, that doesn't make any difference. Because in the end, we want to try to put as much force behind the ball as we possibly can, with the exception of maybe a changeup. But certainly on a curveball, certainly on a slider or a cutter, definitely on a fastball, we want to try to put as much force behind the ball as we can. So that's what we mean when we say stay behind the ball. Makes perfect sense. Except when I see guys gripping the ball and I see middle finger on the outside part of the ball, and especially maybe for something like a breaking ball, now all of a sudden it's like, I want you to stay behind the ball, but I want you to be on the outside third of it. How could he possibly stay behind the ball here? What's this guy going to do? This guy is going to come around the ball just by virtue of where his middle finger is. Okay? So, kind of along those lines, everything that we're going to try to do with our pitches is we're going to turn the ball, not our hand. Okay? So we want to keep that middle finger and thumb relationship in the middle of the ball, and we're going to try to turn the ball to make it do different things. All right? Makes sense so far? We want to make sure that our spacing is the same on a fastball. Let's say it's a 4-seam and a 2-seam. I'll see guys grab their 4-seam like this. Okay, so their spacing, it's about pinky width distance. Their finger pads are on the seams. And they say, okay, show me your 2-seamer. And the first thing the guy does is he'll roll the ball here, and he'll spread his fingers out. To me, that's two completely different pitches, and it doesn't have to be. My spacing can be the same. Okay? I keep that middle finger and thumb relationship. I turn the ball. My spacing stays identical. That way this pitch doesn't seem so foreign. I'm sure some of you guys, a lot of you guys are saying, all right, 4-seamer, 2-seam's a little bit harder for the guy to throw. It's a little bit harder for him to command. I think check that part of his grip first before you think, he just can't throw a 2-seamer. Because I see pro guys all the time. 4-seam, they're good. Their spacing is right. The ball is comfortable in their hand. They've got the middle finger and the thumb where it should be. And then they go to that 2-seam grip and everything changes. Okay? So small things, again, kind of going back to the grip. Spacing in my hand, I obviously am not going to choke the ball. I want to keep some adequate spacing in here. So all things being equal, I'm going to try to keep about pinky's width distance apart. Any further than that, I start to create drag on the ball. That might be great for a BP fastball or something like that, but for a regular fastball, we want to try to get them a little bit closer together. Okay? Thumb's going to be on a seam. 2 pads of my fingers are going to be on a seam. Okay? So that's where we're going to go with that, and that's where all of our pitches are going to start. Middle finger, thumb, middle of the ball, and then our spacing. Okay, so I'm not going to get into every variation, but I will talk about quickly, a couple of differences with a 4-seamer. Horseshoe on the inside, that's got a chance to be more of a riding type of 4-seam fastball. Okay? Horseshoe on the outside, so the horseshoe, talking about the C of the seams, horseshoe on the outside of the ball has a tendency to cut. And I think it's just the resistance of the wind, how it applies force to the baseball once it comes out of the hand. But you'll see guys that can get a little bit of cutting action or riding action. It's just a small tip, but it's something that I've seen a lot of. Different variations of 2-seam grip. Obviously you have the one with the seams. You have cross seams. I kind of like one where you just turn it a little bit. Again, we're kind of going back into that, turning my hand. I'm going to turn my hand, and now when it comes off, it has maybe a little bit of tumbling action. I can turn it the other way, and now I make it a cutter. Okay, so like that was maybe this is my 2-seam. Again, I'm turning the ball. Middle finger's still in the middle of the ball. And what I did is I just extended that seam. It's an X. So I made an X with the ball. I turned it in my hand a little bit, and now when it comes off, it has a tendency to make that little revolution like it's going to cut. Okay, so just, again, kind of small things with that. Pitchers know how to change speeds on their fastball. I talked about the BP fastball, maybe spreading your fingers out a little bit. An extra fastball, especially one that's in or up, makes it look faster. The hitter, he has to react quicker. Now all of a sudden, I've got 2 or 3 different pitches. Okay, so again, with feel and a little bit of experimentation, now we've got 3 or 4, maybe 5 different types of fastballs that we throw, and we can get it inside the zone. Again, I'm gonna own them before I'm gonna go with that, but I still want to be able to experiment with it. All right, my question to you on the changeup is, why does everyone start with the hardest grip? Everyone and their brother, whether they're 8 years old or whether they're 25 years old, do you have a good changeup? No, I don't have a good changeup. All right, show me your grip. And 98, 99% of them always start with this grip, the circle change, right? I mean, that makes absolutely no sense to me. None. Because to me, this is one of those pitches that, this is foreign in my hand. This doesn't feel right in my hand if I haven't thrown it before. So why would I start with the hardest grip and try to learn a changeup, and instead of starting with the most simple grip and then working my way or evolving into maybe this type of grip? Okay? Another little small tip on my changeup, and we'll get to the spacing and stuff in just a minute, but if I'm a four-seam fastball guy, then I probably want to throw a four-seam changeup. Why? Because as I get up with hitters, as they get better, it disguises the spin. So it looks like a fastball because it's got that four-seam type of rotation. And if I'm a four-seam fastball guy, then I want to make it look like my four-seam fastball. The difference is I'm slowing it down. Okay? So that simple grip that we're going to talk about first, whether it's a two-seam or whether it's a four-seam, the properties of the middle finger and the thumb stay the same. Middle finger and the thumb, middle of the ball. We want to stay behind this. We're not worried about trying to turn it over, making it move. We just want to get comfortable with it first, and we want to be able to get some speed off of it. All right, so what I'm going to do is take my middle finger and my thumb, put it in the middle of the ball, and then I'm going to take my ring finger and my first finger and kind of spread around it, create a pitchfork. My pinky can rest. My pinky can come under. But bottom line is I just want to be comfortable with that three-fingered grip. Is it deep in your hand? Is it loose? I don't know. Felix Hernandez got the best changeup in the world, and he learned it in spring training when he first got the pro ball. He didn't have it when he was 15. He learned it. He screwed around with the grip until he got really good at it. Now it's the best pitch in baseball. For him, he's one of the best pitchers, if not the best pitcher in baseball. Okay? So it's experimentation with what feels right. Now, I will say this. The deeper I get and the firmer that I get with my wrist and my fingers, the harder it is for the ball to come out the right way. So, a lot of times, and I don't want to do this, I'll have to kind of turn, but I'll have guys grab, kind of throw up a change up, and then get their grip quick and throw. Reason being is I don't want them to think too much about the grip, and number two is I want them to stay loose. If I can stay somewhat loose with this and have a quick arm, just by virtue of where my fingers are, that's going to take speed off the ball, okay? The first place I'm going to start with a changeup, if I'm learning it, is I want them to think about it as a fastball that is thrown with a different grip. I want them to think that way. If it's too hard, who cares? Some of the best changeups in baseball right now are 6 to 7 miles an hour off of their fastball speed, and they're getting guys out on it big time. Really what I think happens is the 6 or 7 mile an hour speed differential gets a lot of pop-ups and a lot of ground balls, and then the 8 to 10 or more gets a little bit more swing and miss. So, if you're asking your 10 or 12-year-old guy to take 10 off or 8 off or that's the benchmark or whatever, forget it. Throw it for a strike. Think of it like it's a fastball. Worst case scenario, it's 2 or 3 miles an hour off of your fastball to start with. Okay, it's a BP fastball. That's how we'll start with it. And we'll work our way and we'll get better as we go. Okay, breaking ball, and you go slider and curveball. The first thing I'll tell you is obviously we want to be able to differentiate between the two. A slider, I want to be able to stay behind. Okay, 10 minutes, great. I got about 40 more minutes of work here. I'm going to have to get this in quick. What I want to be able to do, a curveball is a looser wrist pitch. I can be a little bit looser with this. I have to be able to accelerate from the backside of the ball, kind of going back to the corners and the sides, the backside of the ball through the front side of the ball. Okay, so my hand is going to be more in a karate chop type of setting. The grip and how firm it is dependent on the pitcher. I'd say that if he's too loose and too sloppy, it's going to be a sloppy curveball. So there has to be some firmness in it. But what we're really trying to do is get from the back side of the ball to the front side of the ball. On the slider, we want to stay firm with this because we want to make it spin on a point. Almost like we went back to that cube. If I had a side or a corner of the ball and I get on that corner and I come up and over it, to me that's got a chance to spin on a point. I can stay behind this pitch and I can make this pitch move late. Okay? So think of it this way. I'm going to karate chop, throw the backside to the front side on the curveball, and I'm going to tune the radio dial with my slider. I'm not coming around it. The lower my slot is, the more I'm going to have to. The higher my slot is, the more that I can stay behind it and up and through it. okay? One small cue, and this might be for more like a 15, 16, 17-year-old guy than it would be a younger guy. But I talk all the time about throwing your breaking stuff with your back hip, okay? Meaning that I want to make sure that this back hip, as I throw, I'm accelerating. This back hip is rotating up and around my front side. When that happens, leverage occurs out front. I throw it out in front of me, and there's a little bit more rotation or a little bit more oomph in that pitch. If you look at a lot of guys, they throw a curveball or a slider, they give up on it. And we look at it like it's arm speed. But to me, it's not as much arm speed as it's body and the way that your body turns. You're cutting it loose on a fastball, right? But on that breaking ball, you're a little bit hesitant, and you're not getting that back hip cleared up and through. I want the back hip to come up and around, and I want to make sure that with that, I'm getting out in front of the pitch. So on the breaking ball, think about the back hip as being kind of the aggressor there. Spike or knuckle curve, this is what I'll say about it quickly. You spike it to keep your wrist more firm. Okay, the downside of this pitch, it's going to end up probably being slower. I haven't seen too many spike or knuckle curves that are as fast as maybe a two-fingered version of it. Okay, split. On the split, I see too many guys throwing forkballs. They're too spread out with the ball. Their fingers are too deep. This causes tension in my wrist. This is where I get those arm problems that we talk about from the split, from the forkball. A true split finger is a loose pitch. I was fortunate enough to talk to Bruce Suter, who, in my opinion, had the best one of all time. And I asked him, okay, what was your key? He said, I had to stay loose with it. My wrist had to be loose. He goes, my grip was fairly loose. And he goes, when I came out in front, everyone thought that I spurted my thumb through my two fingers. He goes, I didn't do that. He goes, what I did is, he goes, I rolled my fingers through the inside of the ball, and my thumb kind of came through it this way. He goes, but I couldn't do that unless I was really loose, okay? And you guys might not be talking about too many splits with your guys, and that's great, but if you are, make sure that the spacing isn't too deep, it's not too firm, and if you got a smaller guy with smaller hands, that's going to be kind of an impossibility. Okay, so the last part of this is plan. And to me, this is sort of where you start making your money in terms of pitching, okay? My initial plan is, we already talked about the strengths and the weaknesses. I want to be able to take my strengths and really use them, okay? I'm going to develop a basic plan against a lefty. I'm going to do a basic plan against a righty. And the reason I'm going to do that is that I pretty much know my strong side of the plate with my fastball. I pretty much know what I can or can't do with my changeup and my breaking ball. So basically, I'm going to just take a set of pitches or three pitches and try to combine them to attack a left-handed hitter. I already know what I'm going to do with them. It might be in a different sequence, but I already know what I'm going to do with that lefty, and I'm going to kind of stay with it if I can. Same thing with a righty. And you'd be surprised at how many guys at really high levels do just that. They do the same thing against righties as they always do. They do the same thing against lefties. This is a bad comparison, but Mariano Rivera pretty much did the same thing every single time against every single hitter that he ever faced, and it worked really, really well for him. Basic pitches, just kind of thinking about mastering lanes and levels of the plate. Here's what I mean. We talked about the two-seam, the four-seam, the BP, the extra, the sinker, the cut. That's great. But let's pick out one or two that we're really good at first, and then we can start to kind of maneuver into those other pitches. I might just stay with a four-seam. I might take that four-seam and go horseshoe in and horseshoe out and see if it will do something different. I might take that same four-seam and spread my fingers out and develop a BP fastball. Now I got three different pitches with the same grip. On my changeup, I'm going to start with middle, down, and then I'm going to start with arm side, because that's where my changeup usually goes. So I'm a left-handed pitcher. My changeup is going to go away to a righty. I'm going to master that first before I start to try to get on the other side of the plate. My curveball, strike first, down. My curveball or breaking ball is then going to go from strike, middle, down to my glove side, because that's where that ball goes. Again, I see guys in high school and college trying to throw backdoor this and front door that. There aren't too many guys that do it very well, and I think you master the basic part of it first, and you got a much, much better chance. Now, these patterns, I think, are kind of important because, to me, it's how you train. It's developing a way to create situations in the bullpen where I combine 2 pitches and 3 pitches and go 2-pitch and 3-pitch sequences. Okay? So pattern 1, and you guys can develop your own patterns. This is just something that I kind of talk about. My pattern 1, it's a fastball sequence, and basically I'm going to throw clusters of fastballs inside of the zone, and basically I'm going to work my fastball away to in or up. And the reason I'm working it away to in or up is simple. I want this pitch away to put some sort of timing in the hitter's mind. When it's in or up, he has to react faster. Okay, so I'm basically speeding him up as I go. Pattern 2 is my fastball to off speed. Fastball should work into up to breaking balls away. That's that classic book that we've all worked on. Fastballs in, breaking balls away. Pattern 3 is my off-speed early to my fastball late. Fastballs, again, work in and up, so I go off-speed early down. If it's away, that's great. If not, then it's down, it's slower, and then I work my fastballs in and up. So this is a way for me to practice just about every single time I get on a mound. If I'm working on my arsenal, if I'm working on developing pitches, this is what I'm going after. Okay, I'll finish up with a couple of things here, and to me this is really important. A basic plan. I want 4 Ps, and these 4 Ps are going to beat the hitter consistently. We're going to pound down and we're going to pitch up. I talked about it earlier, pounding down or pitching down in the zone. It's tough for the hitter to get there, but I want to make him responsible for areas up in the zone. We also just talked about how a fastball in or a fastball up makes it look faster, makes him have to react faster, okay? Pace, 2 things with pace, all right? First off, it puts me in good rhythm, okay? I have good rhythm. I know exactly what I need to do. I'm pounding the zone. I develop my own rhythm on the mound. Here's what it doesn't do for the hitter. If I can get a hitter to make 1 or 2 swings a game, any hitter, one hitter in their lineup, 1 or 2 swings that he didn't want to take, then that's an advantage for me. And a lot of times is that pace, he's got to get there, he gets uncomfortable, and all of a sudden he does something that he doesn't want to do. Okay? Pace also helps our defense. Pace also, it basically limits the amount of time that a hitter can think. All right, so he's trying to process what you just threw him, and if I'm coming after him, I'm relentless after him, he's going to have trouble thinking about what he's going to do. Presence, we've already talked about that. That was the number 1 part, right? If I have presence, that's part of my arsenal. If I look like I'm never shaking, and if I look like I'm competing my ass off on every pitch, then you know what, I got a pretty good chance at getting people out. And pitchability is the stuff that hopefully we're learning now. Pitchability is, I've got all these weapons at my disposal. Now, how do I use them? How much time do I have? None? 2? Perfect. Okay. So counts. This is the psychology of the game, in my opinion. Fits means fearless in the zone. We want to get to 2 strikes as soon as we possibly can, and then we want to know what to do once there. Sorry, that was a typo. No meaning I know, not no. Know what to do once there. Early, I'm going to use the fat part of the plate in 1/3. It's fearless in the zone. Down is fine. Okay, ahead, I'm going to expand after I've earned it. If I'm 0-2, I'm going to use that up part of the zone, the expansion sides of the zone, and down on the plate to my advantage. That's where the diamond is. Up, expansion, down, creates that diamond inside of the zone. Okay, behind, fat plate, and down, when even counts. Everyone talks about first pitch, this, or 1-1 counts or whatever. I say win every even count you can, because that's exactly where the psychology of the game lies, right? If I get 1-0 as a hitter, now all of a sudden I'm confident. I let my swing go. If I get 0-1 as a hitter, it changes my game. Same thing with a pitcher. It's a vice versa deal. So if I can win 0-0, 1-1, and 2-2 time and time again, I win the battle of the psychology of the game. Okay? So forget about first pitch. Win as many even counts as you possibly can. If I lose that first pitch, no problem. I get to 1-1, I try to win it. I get to 2-2, I want to try to win it. Because the more even counts that I win, the better positions I put myself in. So I'm going to try to be ahead or even 72 to 75% of the time. If I'm ahead or even 72 to 75% of the time, I'm going to be tough to beat on that particular day. So this is what we're trying to shoot for. Inside those two blue lines, early behind, ahead, we're taking the middle away and expanding out. And this is that 0-2 diamond. Okay, so it's up elevated fastball, down breaking ball. It's expansion fastball on either side. It's a slider that works on the plate, goes from strike to ball. Okay, situations, and this is the last thing. I got two more things, and I'll hurry, I promise. Okay, situationally, I got to know when to give in. When it's time for me to pitch around a guy, I got to know the score. I got to know who's on deck. I've got to know what it is that I'm going to do. I get 2 on this guy. I got to learn how to pitch around him. That's also part of your arsenal. Whether you want to relent or not, that's still part of your arsenal because your main job is to win the game. Okay? Bunt, some people say throw it up. Some people throw, I don't care what you throw. Get an out. Have PFP skills once the ball is bunted, and I'll take 1 out of that 21 or 27 or whatever it is that I'm after. I'll take it on a freebie. Running game, good runners run early in the count. Average runners run on breaking balls. Okay, so if you have that kind of in your mind, all I'm thinking about doing is hold. Hold, hold, hold. Next one, hold, pitch. Next one, hold, 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 pick. And, so on and so forth. So you're playing cat and mouse with that guy. I like saying hold as opposed to 1, 2, or 3 just because it reminds me to hold the ball. Know when a ball is a hitter's trying to pull it versus when he's trying to go the other way. Pitch accordingly. If he's trying to pull it, I'll stay away. If he's trying to go the other way, jam him. Okay, I'm going to try to get in his kitchen a little bit if I can. Okay, I told you I had a lot more. So we can talk about it afterwards. But here's the thing I want you to remember, because I think this is kind of the one thing that a pitcher and a catcher can always go back to. There's that feeling that a hitter, that a pitcher and a catcher have when the hitter is on him, right? Whether it's a foul ball or it's the way he took a pitch, there's just sometimes that feeling that you go, you know what, that guy was on that pitch. It might have been the way that he swung the bat. It might have been the foul ball, a foul ball straight back, or whatever it is. But you go, you know what, this guy's on me. He's on me. And with that, I think you've got 3 choices, right? You either throw the different pitch, and that's the most common one. I throw a fastball that the guy yanks down the line, so I go to the changeup or a breaking ball. Pretty easy. That's pretty standard elementary deal. Okay, but there are 2 other choices that you can go with, right? I threw a fastball away that he yanked down the line, so I take that same fastball and I move it in or I move it up, and now the reaction time is different, so I'm going to tie him up with an extra fastball. And I didn't have to throw it extra. I just threw it in a different spot, and it was a different speed for him to react to, and now all of a sudden, that's a good thing. Okay, that's something that helps me. Now, instead of him yanking it down the line, you got a jam shot pop-up to your third baseman that he just couldn't quite get to. Okay? Your third choice is I stay on that same side and I change speeds. That's where that BP fastball comes into play. We'll use that same fastball away. My fastball away, guy yanks down the line, right? I take a little bit off, I throw a BP fastball, and now all of a sudden that guy, instead of him yanking it down the line, hits it right to my shortstop, double play ball waiting to happen. 3 or 4 miles an hour off, and now all of a sudden I didn't have to strike the guy out. I got myself a ground ball, which is exactly what I wanted to do. That's pitching. That's what pitching is. That's what we have to teach our guys, because they're not going to learn it on their own, and they're not going to do it. What is every guy doing today? He's trying to throw the ball as hard as he can. That's the way it is. Thrower becomes a pitcher when he can change levels and lanes, add a second pitch, and then a third, all while changing speed. Okay? A pitcher becomes an artist when he can add things like backdoor, front door, and bum rushing the hitter with a slide step. People think that a slide step is for the runner. Sometimes it's better for the hitter. You get him in that rhythm, and it's up, it's lift. Now all of a sudden it's a quick step. It's a freeze pitch for him. Okay? Master the basics first, and the game experience is still the best teacher. That's all I have time for. I appreciate your humoring me and listening to me, and I'll be in the other room here in a few minutes. Thanks, guys.
With us tomorrow afternoon talking about connections of the delivery as well as Sunday morning